Woodcraft, helping you make woodwork.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. My name is Joel Green. I work here at Woodcraft Spokane, and I welcome you to our Woodcraft Spokane store. Today's demo is going to be on turning a pen. I'm going to be turning a pen called the Continental. It's one of our kits that we have here. And I'm going to start from beginning to end and make this pen my way and how I learned how to do it. A few things we're going to talk about is right now I'm using a jet lathe. This is one we sell. It is a variable speed, which quite frankly is one of my favorites. And depending on where you set your belt, it can go from a snail's pace clear up to starting a fire. And that's from like 0 to up to 3,600 RPMs. I enjoy it a lot, and I highly suggest getting one of these if you're going to be making a lot of pens. It saves a lot of time instead of changing the belt out. Another thing that I'm going to be wearing, and this is an Easy Wood Tools Smock. I wear it for two reasons only. Number one, it keeps wood chips out of my pants. Anything that keeps wood chips out of my pants is a bonus to me. Thank you, Craig. And the second reason is I look really good in it. And quite frankly, anything that makes this look good makes me happy. We're going to be turning our pen today and be using also, speaking of Easy Wood Tools, Easy Wood Tools tools. They're carbide. They last 30% longer than your regular tools. And I am somewhat lazy. I don't like to sharpen. If I go to sharpen my conventional tools, which there's nothing wrong with the conventional tools, then you're going to have to buy a sharpener. You're going to have to buy all the equipment to do that. I don't want to do that. Time is money. I'm making things left and right. I want to be able to make sure that my tools are sharp. The Easy Wood Tool carbide tools stay sharp 30% longer, and what is it? You would have to sharpen your regular tool 120 times before you change this blade out. Now on this one and this one, you get four sides. You just take the nut out, turn it to the side, you have a whole new sharp side. You do that. This one, 2. They're about 15 bucks to change them out. If you start doing the math and looking at your traditional tool, getting it sharpened, if you don't have the equipment, you take it someplace to get it sharpened. Each tool costs about $5 to get it sharpened. Times that by 120. You can see that these are a little bit more cost effective, and I'm assured that my project will start off every time sharp. Because if I'm going from bottle stoppers and then I go into a mode of doing pins and then I realize my tools aren't sharp and they're not doing the job, then I've got to go take them in and get them sharpened, and that may pose a problem to me. So what we're going to do first is we're going to pick out our blank when we're making a pen. And there's many different ways to do this. You can come to a store like Woodcraft, or you can make your own. Woodcraft has many different wood blanks to choose from. I grabbed one, and I think this is a Woodcraft blank that I've had in my own possession for a while, and I believe this is Bird's Eye Maple. And so you'll come and you'll pick out your kit. And within the kit, the most important thing within the kit, besides your ink, is going to be your brass tubes. And they come in various lengths and sizes. So you'll want to make sure that you match up the brass tube with the size brad point drill bit that you do. Some use the same drill bit. Your slimlines, your Europeans all use a 7mm drill bit. But if you get a Continental like this one, you'll have a thicker cap, a wider cap, excuse me, and a narrower body. And you'll be using, for this exact kit, we'll be using for the main body will be a 10.5mm brad point bit, and for the cap will be a 12.5mm bit. So each kit can be completely different. So the first thing that I do is bring out my brass tubes. Take them out of the kit, set them off to the side, take your kit, put it in a dish. I like to use like a little Dixie plate, if you will, and put all my stuff in there, because I noticed that if I just set it on the table, as soon as I need a part for that kit, it's gone. Magical elves have taken it. I have no idea where it is, and then I've got another trip down here to the woodcraft store to get a little tiny thing out of the kit, and then once I get it home, there it is, it's returned, and I bought the, so now I make 2 pens. So here we go. We have 2 brass tubes, completely different lengths for this Continental and different sizes. So the first thing that I do is you want to roughen up the tubes. You want to roughen them up for one main reason. That is because if these are smooth and you go to glue these into your blank after you've drilled them out, they will just push. They will push when you try to tighten things down and come right out. So we roughen them up. We scuff them. We create grooves in there, micro grooves, so that which I use, the 5-minute epoxy, has something to adhere to. It grabs in there on both inside of the blank and on the tube. How do we roughen up? Some people use 100 grit sandpaper and roughen it up. That was too good for me, so I decided to use my dog's petty paws, because it was just hanging around and it's got sandpaper on it. So I hang out in my shop, and that's what I do. Do a little bit of cross around the sides here so it has something to adhere to. You don't have to do that. I just thought it was kind of a cool tool to use, so I decided to use it. Then the next step would be you want to go ahead and put on some 5-minute epoxy, A and B, mix them together, equal amounts, and you'll go ahead and rub them onto your brass tube here. There's many different ways to do this. My way isn't necessarily better than your way or whatnot, but I get it pretty close up to my fingers, and then I will take it and I will slowly insert it into the tube, and I will be rolling it back and forth like so. The object is to not only spread the glue around on your brass tube, but also to make sure that it adheres on all sides within the circular blank that you have. And then once I feel that I am there, I can feel a little bit of a slick glide, I will actually turn it around to the other side and push it through and just let it fall in, and then that'll get that side as well. So that assures me that everything has been glued. Otherwise, you will get blowout because that side that does not have the glue on it creates a weak point and will pop it off.
You have to clean the epoxy out of the tube.
The question is, do I have to clean the epoxy out of the tube? Sometimes, yes. And there's tools for that. I mean, I've even used a small narrow knife blade just to kind of circulate in there and get it out. The other way to do it is to use your Whiteside Pen Mill. And these are really nice because they do 2 different cuts. You have many different blades here. And they have 2 different cuts. They have a circular cut, and they have a cut at the top here on the head. And what this does is it allows you, once you have this all glued up, you have glue on the inside of your brass tube. It's not even here. The brass tube is somewhat just slightly within there. And some people will use a sander, a belt sander, disc sander, even it up and keep sanding it until they hear a shave mark, a metal mark, if you will. And that's one way to do it. These are great because when these are in your drill press, you will turn it on, and as this goes in, it bores out all the glue on the inside of your brass, and this head here will be turning, and it will get right down to the brass and leave you a very nice, clean, very even surface so that your bushings are perfectly sucked up to the sides. Does that make sense? Well, thank you. Highly recommend these. They save a lot of time. One thing that, like I said, the other way is to use a belt sander. And I've had more pens that were just slightly off because that belt sander was slightly off due to where it was resting, sitting. The platform was uneven, and that's a way to do it. If you get it all set up and it's fine, then you can just go like a conveyor line and just go to town. But I use these because I sell these pens for a lot of money, and I just really for my studios, they have to be perfect, and the pen mills here by Whiteside really do make that happen for me. Okay, so we've gone ahead and let's say, I'm going to back up a little bit step here. So we've got everything right, we've got our brass tubes ready, and before we do that, we go ahead and we're going to want to take our stock and we're going to want to go ahead and lay them out on the wood. I like to leave a little bit of an overhang here on the wood on both sides, and you will make a mark here, and then you'll come in and you'll lay the other one right off to the side of that mark, and you will want to make another mark over here. And then what I do is I place an X right on the end that you're going to scrap and throw away. That way you don't get confused on the end thing. And it will look something like this. There's my short blank, there's my long blank, there's my X I toss. Now I also take a Sharpie and I put a line right through the middle right there, letting me know that when I go ahead and put this on my mandrel, I want to make sure that the two black lines are on the same side. Because if you don't, then you make a really beautiful pin and the grains within the pin don't match up. And this way is a way to ensure to you to do that. And then another way to do it is once you get it laid down, turned down, is to come back with a Sharpie and put a Sharpie on the inside here on both blanks, because when they go together, then you know that those are going to be the two ends that come together and meet in the middle, giving you the beautiful pin that you're looking for. Then once you get these cut on the bandsaw, and the reason why you want to measure these out just a little bit more is you want to take account of the width of your bandsaw blade when you're cutting it, and you don't want to not leave yourself enough room for mistakes, bandsaw blade shaking a little bit. You want to make sure that you have enough to grind off so that you can have a beautiful pen and it fits all together. Then once you have the two halves together like this, you'll want to go ahead and you know there are many different tools. I've used a ruler for years. This is a handy tool right here. You just suck it up there, make your mark, turn it, half turn, quarter turn, make your mark, you have a perfect X. And you can use this on pepper mills, bottle stoppers, pen blanks, or whatever you do. And you do it on two sides. And then you'll go ahead and, for sake of argument, for this particular kit, we have a 10.5 millimeter and a 12.5 millimeter brad point bit, and we will go ahead and drill those out. And as you can see, we have two different sizes, the head, the cap, and the main body, with everything glued in and all happy. And then you put it on your mandrel and you put it with your bushings, and this is where you get to this point right here. I went ahead and turned it down a little bit more so that we could go ahead and get started and make this happen. Are there any questions so far? Pretty self-explanatory? Make sense? I'm sure all of you are old hats anyway. All right, so if there aren't any more questions, let's go ahead and turn this down, okay? Now, one important thing about this is when you're turning this down and you're using your tools, you want to make sure that you don't go all the way to the bushing. You want to leave just a little bit of a lip. The reason for that is when you go to sand this and get it smoothed out to the perfect sheen that you want to make sure that you're not past those bushings. Otherwise, when you go and put it together, it's not going to fit correctly, and it's going to be very noticeable. Feels nice. Now with my tools, I come in and I smooth out, roughen that out, and I smooth out with this tool right here. And it has an R2 blade on it. It's a carbide blade that's slightly tapered. What that allows me to do is for pins, is allows me to rock it back and forth and really put on a nice smooth finish. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and turn this down a little bit. Get that out of the way. Now I'm going to be using my sandpaper of choice. This is called Abranet. I discovered that while working here. Absolutely love it. It's a fabric mesh sandpaper. It has many grits, 80, 100, 120, 150, 180, 220, 320, 400, and 600, all in the assortment pack. I find that they last me a lot longer. I can cut them up into sections. And when they get dirty, I just wash them out and dry them. And they stay that way. So we're going to start off with 80 grit. Highly recommend it. There's nothing wrong with the other sandpapers. Still use them all the time. I just noticed that sometimes, depending on the wood that I'm using and the oil within the wood, some of the sandpapers will start to discolor the ends of my pen. And then I'll have to come in with some alcohol and clean that up and do that again. I have not experienced that with this Abranet. And what I've done is, like I said, cut it up into strips, and then I've stapled one end. So all my sandpapers are here. I'm not turning around trying to find the right sandpaper. Any questions so far? Excuse me?
Speed when you first turned?
Yeah.
What was the speed?
I think it was up to 36. Yeah, I go right to it. I don't mess around. That's how I roll. Just jump right in, highest speed I can get in there. I got things to do. Dinner's ready. Any other questions? Is that? Sanding speed. Right now I am hovering around 1900 on this particular lathe. When you do a lot of these, you'll start to get a feel on what works well for sanding. Some woods, believe it or not, sand better at a higher RPM than a lower RPM. And sometimes the higher you get with some woods, because of the oil content within the woods, they'll actually start to polish it up real nice. And I believe macadamia nut is one of those. We're having fun now.
How you got the sandpaper hooked together?
The question is, how do I have my sandpapers hooked together? I used a thick staple. And I stapled it good. That way I just flip it back and forth. These good ideas for you guys? You learning something? It's just how I do it. You know, when you do a lot of pins and stoppers and pepper mills and whatnot, there's a lot of time in sanding where you come up and invent things in your own head. And I do that. After I get done with my Abranet and finish up with about 600 grit, I move on to the micro mesh. And I do the first 4 of the micro mesh, starting off at 1500. $1,800. Micromesh is a wonderful product. It absolutely is. If you don't own it, it really makes your acrylics, your stone, and your wood just smooth right up. One of the things to note, though, is as you get lower down on your micromesh scale, using 2400 now, you're going to want to turn it down. If you don't, it's such fine grain, you will start to wear into it. And then you will leave marks on your blank, and then you'll have to start over again to sand that off. And 3200. Oh, that's feeling nice. I use this for my acrylics, my true stone, and when I'm CAing. CAing is a super glue, basically, and it makes a wonderful polish on all types of materials that you turn. All right, let's see how we're doing here. Oh, that looks nice. That looks really nice. I'm happy with that. Do you guys see that from here? Macadamia nut is gorgeous. Okay, so...
Your guess is how thick the wood is now.
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I'm not that smart. I'd probably have to take the bushings off and then use a pair of calipers and yeah. But when I take these off and do the finish, I'll let you take a peek. Then you can determine where you think that is. Now, at this point, I would probably, if this was an oilier wood, I would come in and use some alcohol just to clean up that oil, so that depending on the finish that I'm going to use next will stick well, and it cleans it up. But this is pretty good for sake of this demo today. We're just going to go ahead and go on to the finish. What kind of finishes would you guys like to see put on this? Yes.
When you put the super glue, the CA on, how do you put either one?
Well, that was going to be my next thing.
Oh, okay.
And the question was, why don't we just put a CA finish on this? Let's just go ahead and do that. We'll forgo the friction polish, and we're going to go ahead and do this. We'll put a CA on it. Good question. Let's do that.